We do all kinds of things here at Word in Your Ear.
We do podcasts.
We do videocasts.
Quizzes.
Crowdcasts with famous authors.
And we can guarantee to make your next birthday one you will never forget.
There's only one way to make sure you get all of this, you get it in full, and you get it first.
And that's by becoming a supporter on Patreon.
Details here.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a view.
This is a Word in Your Attic with a bit of a difference, this is, because it's round about a year ago this week since we started doing these things. And so we thought we would catch up again with a couple of the people we spoke to early in the process about a year ago. And first of all, I got Mark Billingham there, who I think was number one.
Literally the first one we had on.
Literally. Are you thrilled? Are you thrilled?
I presume you were going in alphabetical order.
No, you were nearby or whatever. We thought Mark will do it. Mark will do it. We'll start with him.
Yeah,
and also down here, somebody we did not long afterwards, Peter Curran. Hello, Peter.
Great to see you.
Lovely to be with you again.
Now you're in a different shed, but a different shed. Is that right?
Yes. This is my rather grandiose work shed. You know, this is where the incredible world-beating ideas come from.
Right.
And there's a nice big window to stare out of and think of nothing. So two sheds Jackson is nothing. And
no, they're not new. Well, it's all come into its own in the last year. So what we wanted to do was just reflect on the strange circumstances of the last year, and we guessed that you, like us, have spent a lot of the last year reacquainting yourself with loads of things that you had around the place that you probably didn't pay a lot of attention to before, or finding the value in something that you didn't see before. Shall we start with you, Mark? Seeing you were number one, what have you been doing?
Well, there has been some work done. Because, of course, I mean, the lockdown, certainly the first lockdown, didn't make an awful lot of difference day by day to people who write for a living, who spend most of the day in their pajamas anyway. So I managed to get some work done, but it's got harder. I mean, that's definitely got harder. Yeah. But the thing I rediscovered, and I talked about this when I was on the show the first time round, was jigsaws. You know this.
You're still doing them. I noticed.
Oh my God, I haven't
stopped. Amazing ones. You did a lovely one of a load of book jackets the other day, and then 80s icons. So you had Tiswas and Adam and the Ants. That's right.
Yeah, I went through. There's a series called Spirit of the. So I did Spirit of the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Oh yeah.
And it all started with the single jigsaw I had, which my wife had bought me years ago, and I went, "Oh, a jigsaw!" and stuck it in the cupboard, which was the Sergeant Pepper cover.
Yeah.
And then I brought that out within a week of lockdown, and just went, "Where have you been all my life?" Jigsaws,
and then worked your way through various other album sleeves.
Every Beatles album and lots of other albums, and
literally every Beatles album,
including the White Album.
No, you can't get the White Album. That was what everybody joked. When are you going to do the White Album? Yeah. There is no White Album. But the latest one I did, and this is what I discovered what an idiot I am. So this is one called Remember When.
All right.
Have a good look at it. And it's kind of an interesting jigsaw because the things you're supposed to remember. I mean, it's quite an interesting one in terms of sort of American civil rights and stuff, because you've got Martin Luther King and you've got Rosa Parks and, you've got all sorts of great people on it, Aretha and Duke Ellington and whatever. And then up in this corner, there's this poster for a gig, right? Which I got very excited about.
Everly, I was to say,
there on the same bill, you've got the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, and Jimmy Rogers. And I got all excited, of course, and tweeted about this, going, "Oh my God, what a show that must have been." And then, of course, somebody pointed out, "Well, it's not the Jimmy Rogers, don't you?" And of course I went, "God, no, Jimmy Rogers would have died about 25 years before that." So there was another Jimmy Rogers who I'd never heard of, spelt the same way.
There should be a word for that feeling, that terrible feeling of international shame when you realise you've said something ludicrous on Twitter.
There'll be a German word for it.
There will be.
It took me back to looking at Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman Jimmy Rogers, father of country music. And here's the thing. He did a whole series of blue yodels.
Yes.
Well, on something like Blue Yodel number 3, the trumpet was played by Louis Armstrong.
Yes, I knew that.
I bloody well didn't. Of course you did, Dave. But I mean, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong playing with Jimmy Rogers?
Well, No, that sort of stuff happened in those days. You know, it wasn't. You weren't in the urban section or the Americana section. You know, it was popular music. Everybody got involved with everybody. So is that your next one to do?
No, that's done. That's done.
So what happens? Does a new one come every day?
Pretty much. And my wife has had enough. She has had enough. They are, you know, there's a pile yay high. So I think when it's all over, I will take them all to a charity shop in the back of a van or auction them off or something, because there are dozens and dozens and dozens of them.
There ought to be an exhibition, I think, of what Mark Billingham did during lockdown. We'd all go and look at the jigsaw.
Well, it's a very strange thing is that people, I'll tweet a picture when I've done it and people go, oh, that's a lovely jigsaw. Where did you get it? No. And then they'll go, what are you going to do with it? You're going to frame it. Who frames a jigsaw?
I know. That's the awful thing. That moment you have to break it all up and put it back in the box.
Yeah, that's what you do.
It's terrible. It took me ages.
I know, but that is, to frame it would seem ludicrous.
It would.
I don't know though. I think that sort of idea that you're not only framing the jigsaw, you're actually framing the time, the incredible patience to do that thing, where most of the rest of us would have just, you know, thrown it aside in a childish tantrum when we couldn't find a particular bit.
But would it reflect well on you, though? The idea that you're framing, basically saying, I did a jigsaw. That's a sufficient thing to be proud of.
I do need to point out, Peter, these are all very easy jigsaws.
No,
they really are. I mean, there are 1,000 pieces, but they have to be jigsaws of things I'm kind of interested in or recognise.
Right.
You know, if I see some of the jigsaws other people are doing online and go, you know, like Hokusai's wave or whatever, and you just go, are you joking?
Yeah.
Unless I can do one going, that's John Lennon's ear. I'm not interested.
You know the world's worst jigsaw. I can't really talk about this last time. But
you told me about it.
It's baked beans. It's a huge, great, 2 square feet of baked beans.
No.
But on the back is the same picture reversed 90 degrees. So each piece is reversible. And that is a kind of the seventh stomach of hell, isn't it?
Yeah. Mark, have you got Mark Billingham? Have you got a garden?
Yes.
Why not take the completed jigsaws out and bury them about, a couple of feet in the garden and then turf over it again? And future civilizations will come across the equivalent of a Roman mosaic floor.
Okay,
that's what you do. First of all, you're going to put them back up, put them all back together.
I have got to do it all again.
The British Museum will take care of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I presume the jigsaw industry is one of the few industries that's gone through the roof.
I think there's quite a few industries that have gone through the roof. Actually, they're not major ones, but I think there's quite a few that are doing terribly well. Yeah. The dog industry, I think, is doing very well.
And the dog stealing industry.
Unbelievable. Do you have one?
Yes, have two. And,
right.
A very funny thing happened several years ago. We used to have three, and we had a big dog, golden retriever, who went missing. And horrible panic, and lost the dog in the park. And I put some did that thing of having posters made and put them up in the park. And about 3 days later, I got a call from a vet somewhere several miles away going, I think we've got your dog, because the dog was microchipped and the dog had turned up, and I went, oh, great, thank God. Half an hour later, I get a call from someone going, you lost a dog? And I went, yeah. And I went, I've got it. And of course, I know that this person hadn't got it because I'd just spoken to the vet, and he went, okay. And he went, 150 quid or I'll kill it.
No.
And I went, nice try, mate, but I know you haven't got my dog, right? And I swear to you, he thought for a bit and he went, all right, 150 quid or I'll kill a dog like it. And it was like, you could hear the cogs turning, and he went, all right, plan B.
It's all right, you win.
Guy's obviously a dog lover, but that is quite a common thing. I've used it in a crime novel. That is quite a common thing if you put posters up. People get.
I suppose they will do. Yeah.
There's a cartoon in Private Eye this week of a dog called a species called a nickapoo, which is a cockapoo that's been stolen. So yeah.
Oh God. So Peter, you haven't gone in for jigsaws. Have you had any hobby during lockdown? Anything you've spent more time doing?
Yes, a strange sort of practicality has descended. I have scores of old former jukebox Jamaican 45s that I bought in Good Vibrations Records in the late 70s and early 80s. Terry Hooley used to have racks of these things. Goodness knows where he got them from. They arrived at Belfast docks in an unmarked container, probably. But anyway, so I've put about 150 of these into nice crisp covers.
Oh, lovely.
After years of kind of these yellowing, tatty old, I have to say that sometimes the new cover doesn't quite justify the state of the record. I don't know if you can catch the.
Oh, look at that!
The bend on that fella. Yeah. So it's just kind of
it's a hat.
Which is worse, the A side or the B side? But it made me realize that playing some of those old things before, the weight of the arm and the cartridge that you used to have in the late 70s, early 80s, they were kind of more akin to the shipbuilding industry compared to the sort of fey lightweight. Arms and the cartridges that are around.
And you used to load them up with little piles of coins. If they had a jump in them or something like that, you'd put a big pile of tuppenny bits on there and hope that it would actually make sure it didn't jump,
Yeah.
You must have some of those. I've got the odd old Jamaican, LP record, 12-inch LP.
Yeah.
And they're so heavy.
Yeah.
You think, what kind of factory turned this thing out? It can cost a person, if you.
I would guess that the same factory made sideboards and other things out of shellac, road surfaces.
Yes. So what do you do with them when you've got them all in the bags? Do you play them?
I do play them, and that's the other really strange thing. I realized that middle age had made me so lazy, and I could just about get up to change over an album side, but it had been years and years since I jumped up and down and taken a 7-inch single on and off kind of repeatedly, fit. And yet that used to be life. Do you know what I mean? And
it did.
It's sadly rather thrilling to be sitting with the box of 45s.
But that drama when you turned it over and announced the B-side, that was just a piece of theatre, really. It's lovely.
Do you ever, tell me this, do you ever spread them across the carpet and then go and lie down with your chin in your hands on top of them and look up winsomely at the camera? Because there are millions of photographs of starlets from the 50s and 60s doing that. It was instant shorthand for the good life was pretty lady surrounded by LPs all out of their jackets, all on the carpet.
For a minute, I thought you'd been out the front window again, David.
Yes.
No, you're right that I haven't got to the point of putting a speaker on either, about 2 inches away from each ear, and lying on the floor and looking straight into the album cover as part of the kind of take off and being transported to wherever the band or the musician want to. But I might try that now that you suggested it.
The obvious question, Peter, is: have you got a jukebox?
No.
Are you not tempted to get one and load all these singles onto it?
Yeah, I don't know.
In the shed?
Yes, maybe, but I don't know. I slightly quail at the idea that it's, the sounds that it's a bit naff now to have a jukebox.
Oh, is it?
Well, not that I'm a kind of jukebox fashionista, but I just think the idea that there's something tragic about having a jukebox if you're just on your own. I think you need more than sort of 3 or 4 people around a jukebox.
It's not much of a party, is it? Just one person.
Yes, exactly.
Sort of pushing loose change.
Yeah, there's got to be got to be 4 people around it. You're quite right. They've got to be all arguing about what to play next, haven't they? And checking their pockets to see who's got the right change. No, I agree. I can see that totally. Well, that's great. So Mark, what about records? Have you spent a lot more time with records?
Have you dug out any other old favourites?
Yeah,
I mean, talked to you?
Just going back to what Pete said, just two things. When he showed that sort of weird, wonky record, do you remember that bizarre fetish about 20 years ago for melting singles down into ashtrays?
Yes.
Longer ago than that.
Was it longer ago than that?
Yeah.
what were people thinking of? Anyway, and it also
Horrible
reminded me of the fact that a horrible idea that all the first singles I got were from jukeboxes, because my mum's job when I was a kid was to change the records on jukeboxes.
Oh, wow.
She worked for a company called Bell Fruit, who used to make fruit machines, but also had the jukeboxes. So she would go around the pubs every week changing the singles, and she'd bring them home.
See, the ones with no sensors.
Really? With no sensors, absolutely.
So if she was changing them, does that mean that they were unfashionable, or that they were so scratched that you couldn't really play them anymore?
I just think there was a thing where every few weeks they would change them. And she would go, here you go, you can have this. And she would also bring home vast quantities of Irish coins that people had put into the fruit machines because they weighed exactly the same, and give them to me. So me and my mates would go into town on a Saturday afternoon and put them into these change machines where you could put like an Irish 50p and get 5 10pp's out. 10pp.
Brilliant.
Shocking.
I love all that. Another time, when we discovered you could get a ring pull was exactly the same size as the coin you needed to put in a parking meter. So you put a ring pull in, and then you jammed a coin in afterwards, and then you put a little sign on your dashboard saying, "Sorry, parking meter's not malfunctioning."
Oh, really?
And I know. So it's terrible.
But yeah, I mean, I have gone back to, but it's normally been fired up by. I've been watching a lot of music documentaries.
All right.
And then going back to, I watched this amazing polystyrene documentary.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, actually, Peter, you tweeted about that. I think you saw it too. Didn't you?
It was fantastic, and I guess I mean, it was really interesting hearing her daughter talk about her, and it's a shame that there weren't more interviews with her. Do you know what I mean? I guess they just weren't recorded at the time.
Yeah, but then going back and listening to Germ-Free Adolescence and
I realized they were wonderful records, those. They were so original and clever. And she had, for someone who appeared to be so shy, was so kind of gawky, and tooth braces and all that, she had such incredible confidence.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That scenes when they first go to America, I thought was just thrilling.
Well, yeah, but that's clearly what messed her up. It's sort of what messed her up. I hadn't realised known any.
Yeah, it was all that attention, wasn't it?
But also then watched the Shane MacGowan documentary.
Oh, is that any good?
It's about an hour too long, if I'm honest. And
is it an hour long, Mark?
No, it's like 2.5 hours long, and there's an awful lot of sort of animated sequences and weird bits of sort of sepia reproduction of the young Shane skipping through fields and what have you. But it takes ultimate and you can do without Johnny Depp fawning over Shane MacGowan in a slightly nauseating manner. But it did take me back to listening to a lot of Pogue stuff and remembering some fantastic gigs. Although he does slightly spoil it for you, because he was talking about the tour when they supported Elvis Costello, which is still one of the best gigs I've ever seen, was Elvis Costello supported by the Pogues and the Men They Couldn't Hang at Hammersmith Palais.
Wow.
But he talked about how they nearly got chucked off the tour for doing a couple of silly things, including filling Steve Naive's piano with sand. Right, like they thought that was a funny jape that Elvis and the band would take to the stage, and then Steve Naive would go, and then just be nothing because they poured sand all over his keyboard. And I thought, you should have been thrown off the tour.
So he didn't see the funny side.
I don't think Steve saw the funny side of that.
Have you ever read Ronnie Wood's autobiography? There's 2 ways to read Ronnie Wood's autobiography. One is the way he intends it, which is a rattling good laugh. And the other is as a mature man going, "My God, you did what?" And you said to her, "What?" And this was on the day your child was born or whatever. It's a tragedy depending on which way you look at it. Whereas if you're in rock bands, they always go, "It's a laugh. It's a laugh." No,
it's a laugh, but it's also that whole idea that you're suspended in a state of arrested development. You're frozen at the age of 17. Yeah, and that can start to reflect rather badly on you. Yeah.
So the Pogues, I'm not an expert on the Pogues at all. Is it possible to answer the question? Who's the talent in the Pogues?
Of course it is. Of course.
Okay.
Well, it's. I mean, I saw the Pogues at their peak, I suppose, but I also saw them again not that long ago.
Right.
When you saw the Pogues, what would happen is they'd essentially stand Shane up, and he'd sing a couple of numbers, and then they'd sort of virtually carry him off.
Oh, really?
And then there'd be 10 or 15 minutes of Shaneless Pogues, which isn't the Pogues. I mean, it's just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, he's good value though. Old Spider Stacey.
Oh yes, Spider.
Yeah. But you know, I agree with you. Yes, it was this sort of like totem that was sort of wheeled out of you know a celebration of debauchery. Somehow, this sort of shuddering wreck of a man was seen as the spirit of wild abandon.
But then the minute they take him off again, you half the room gets up and goes to the loo.
Yes.
And, one of the best things was I got to know Spider Stacey a little bit actually after when the Pogues had split up, and there was a time when Spider was playing Shane MacGowan in a Pogues tribute band.
Oh wow!
Which is kind of strange, isn't it?
I saw the Pogues at that stage. I couldn't work out what we were applauding when Shane came on. Were we just applauding the fact he was still alive? I don't really know. I felt a bit uneasy about it actually.
I mean, a lot of this documentary will make you very uneasy then. But some of the songs, just oh my god, you know.
Oh, fantastic!
What a poet! What a lyricist! Phenomenal.
Yeah,
and you know, you're right, Mark. That sort of those poetic laments, like the old Almain Drag and things like that.
Yeah,
it's you know, just as much as kind of Ray Davis was able to evoke London in the 60s. Those records are just fantastic for giving the sort of tang of London at the time they were written.
Yeah.
The other thing, quite early on in the documentary when they're talking about the early days of punk, he is at the front of every punk gig that was ever filmed. I mean, it's really bizarre. They're showing the Clash and the Pistols and whatever, and there's Shane MacGowan down the front. Yeah. And in fact, he's there bopping around at the front in one of the X-Ray Spex things in that documentary without anybody going, that's Shane MacGowan. I just went, that's Shane MacGowan. It's like he was like Zelig. He was like the Zelig of punk.
Wasn't he first of all famous because he had his ear bitten off?
But yes,
at a gig,
at a Sex Pistols gig, I think.
Yeah. So he was known for that before he was known as a.
I think he was on the front of the NME.
And for being in a group called the Nipple Erectors.
The Nipple Erectors.
The Nips. That's right, yeah.
I think sometimes it is sort of the focus on him as being the sort of the songwriting font is fair enough, lyrically. But I think there's, the song Thousands Are Sailing, which Phil Chevron wrote, I think it's one of their best songs.
Yeah.
And I think he brought a sort of, a sort of melodic sophistication to the Pogues as well. And they were all actually... There was a film that was made probably about 12 years ago. I don't know if you saw it. Again, it was about the Pogues getting together, and it was again Johnny Depp, basically sitting there and carousing with an unwilling Shane. They got enough footage to put in the documentary, and it was a similar thing when they got together in the same room. The thing that they reflected on was that, like punk, it was such an unknown journey for them in terms of whether they would come up with anything decent or not. Each time they got together to play, I mean, there was a lot of jeopardy involved, rather than the great poet Shane descending with the lyrics that would then be backed up swiftly by melodies. I like that idea that, they weren't only ramshackle on stage, but as songwriters, they were so unconfident as well.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Peter. In fact, I looked at some, I think Rum Sodomy and the Lash the other day, and actually MacGowan actually only wrote maybe half the songs on that album. There are always covers and other stuff, and Jem Finer, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I was a bit going, yes, MacGowan's obviously the talent. I think he has become the figure
associated with it. Yeah, that's what happens, isn't it? Yeah. No, I've revisited quite a few musical acts in the last 6 months that I hadn't actually listened to for ages. I can't instantly recall them, but it's amazing the enjoyment you get from the records you've got already. So all this mad stress on people getting new ones. You think, well, there must be millions of records you haven't played for ages. What about you, Peter?
Yes, no, absolutely. In fact, another discovery in the bowels of the attic. Attics shouldn't really have bowels.
I was just wondering about that myself.
That's the house is the bowels.
It's an album title, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's in a radio show, From the Bowels of the Attic.
Yeah. Listen, you'd probably remember these from NME and Sounds, the free singles. Mark, do you remember these?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the NME free single featuring the Smiths and the Cocteau Twins and Bronski plays at 33 and the third. And then there was this one from Sounds featuring Head, Happy Mondays, the Triffids and Stump. And I just, it's amazing that I suppose you two guys are the ones to ask. How and why did you go to the trouble of doing all this?
Well,
promotional value was huge.
A long, considerable story here. I mean, were those free with the papers, or were they collect
did you
tokens
send
to
away
send off?
Coupons?
No, you had to send away for.
There
them.
you go. So what these things are all is promotional things. And I tell you, Mark and I had an interesting encounter the other day. We do these word on your birthday things with Patreon supporters whose birthday it is. And we did with this guy in Bradford who had the best kept record collection I've ever seen in my life.
Well, he basically had two copies of everything, didn't he? One he could play and one he could not even really look at, just in a protective sheath.
Spent more money on protective sheaths for records than most of us have spent on records. I've never seen anything like it.
But he had all those flexes, didn't he, Dave? Incredible.
He had a copy of Smash Hits with Squeeze on the cover from probably 1980 or something like that, with a Squeeze flexi still attached with the free tape, the red and yellow tape. So it hadn't even been taken off, you know what I mean? Now, in those days, a flexi on the cover of a magazine was immensely exciting and really powerful. Yeah. It wouldn't say double the circulation, but it would put on a lot. And years earlier, NME had done this with Alice Cooper and the Rolling Stones and the Faces, I think. They did it with Warner Brothers acts. And those were, a flexi disc was better than no record at all. Certainly was.
But it had problems. I remember Q Magazine first put a CD, a cover-mounted CD on the front. And I can't remember what the sales went up by, but I think it was somewhere in the region of 35 or 40,000 copies. Because a CD at that time was like 15 quid, and it was a really good compilation. And the trouble with that is then the circulation of the magazine was artificially ramped up. Yeah. And for the next year or so, it just seemed to be declining. That actually didn't do you any good. Instead of being the magazine that suddenly sold this, you were the one that was on the slide. Well,
the high time of that whole thing was quite late in the day, and I suppose probably in the early 2000s, when the newspapers, your Sunday Times, your Mail on Sunday, and all these people started doing these deals with.
Oh, Prince, John,
Prince. Yeah. Don't you remember? He put a record out just on the Mail on Sunday, because the Mail on Sunday paid him more money for it than he would have got by putting it out.
Yeah,
because sales were sliding, and the Mail on Sunday would use it as a way of just keeping them above the Sunday Times or whatever they wanted to do in some promotional period. But it wouldn't last for long, No, it's amazing to think now. I mean, I've got millions of free CDs nowadays,
Well, sparing both your and Mark's blushes, and I'm sure Mark B will agree with us. One of the joys of Word Magazine was the lovely eclectic selection of music that you got with their free CDs. Yeah, no, they're absolutely brilliant, and that was the thing, because unlike some of these free ones, which frankly was the drip tray offerings from a lot of the bands,
drip tray.
At least there was a kind of quality threshold that had to be met for word readers, sure. And you lived up to it.
But I think they were the equivalent of those the kind of 70s sampler albums. I think Danny Baker the other day tweeted, I think it was Fill Your Head with Rock or whatever, and he was listening to that again, saying how it absolutely changed his life. And they were amazing, weren't they? Because that's how you discovered stuff. There was a whole 15 tracks that you suddenly, found out about, and they were just incredibly influential things.
Yeah. Over to you, Mark. What have you got to show us?
Well, I mean, there's been reading. I guess we've all been doing it. Well, I mean, it's weird because talking to a lot of people, some people have found it incredibly hard to read. I mean, generally, certainly fiction, found it hard to actually immerse themselves in, and then, with all the terrible things that are happening in the world. You must have read this, Mr. Ellen. I guess you've read that. Have you read that?
Oh, I've seen. Yeah.
Rob Sheff. Do you know? I don't think I have.
It's amazing. I mean,
I don't think I have.
When you think a sort of another Beatles book can come along that I thoroughly enjoyed 1, 2, 3, 4, the Craig Brown book, but this
which is really, just genius.
It is fantastic. This is a completely different sort of book. Very, very odd. With chapters in it called things like "Paul is a concept by which we measure our pain."
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And it drove me to do a couple of things. Firstly, which I've never done. I should imagine, and it's shame on me because I thought every Beatles fan has probably done this, which is to make my own Black album. To make my own
good
solo, and I've never done that. And
you mean of the 4 solo records? As if they were one.
Put a sort of Beatles' greatest solo recordings compilation together. So I've gone away and done that, and also some fantastic tribute. Okay, Mark, you must know the answer to this. Why is "Don't Let Me Down" not on Let It Be? Well, I mean, we're getting really nerdy now, but what happened to that song? Was it the B-side of Get Back?
No.
I don't know the answer to that.
No, wasn't Old Brown Shoe the B-side of Get Back?
Yeah, I think you're right. So what happened to that song? One of the big songs they do at the rooftop.
It's on the rooftop. Is it not on the album?
Nope.
How extraordinary.
It's not on Let It Be.
I was only playing Let It Be yesterday.
But it must be on some Beatles record.
I don't know what it's on. There you go. But anyway,
that's amazing.
And I mean, there has been some good fiction. I'm just going to plug.
Yeah.
Go on, do that.
Willie Vloughton, he's a sort of main singer-songwriter in a band called Richmond Fontaine. He's also a genius novelist, just the most fantastic novelist. He wrote a book called Lean on Pete, which was made into a great movie a few years ago. And this is his next one, which is coming out, called The Night Always Comes. Fantastic. New Christopher Brookmeyer. Have you ever had Chris Brookmeyer on this show?
No, he's a member of your band. He's a member of the Fun-Loving Crime Writers, isn't he?
But his new one, The Cut, is just fantastic. This is a debut called Edge of the Grave by Robbie Morrison, which is one of the best books I've read all year. Bloody debut. Doesn't that really piss you off when you read? How can you be that good so fast? Doing quite a lot of reading.
I've done a lot of reading. What about you, Peter? Have you read a lot?
It's strange. I've found fiction quite hard to read in lockdown. I don't know what it is. It's either resentment at this other world existing in the pages. That sounds much more intriguing and exciting than the one I'm in. In sheer petulance, I just throw the book away. But I tell you, in a sort of perverse way, maybe not perverse at all, I have been enjoying myself through the pages of this august organ for nearly a year now.
My lord! Are you proud owners of a caravan?
This is not the Canterbury Rock Band.
No, this is the
vehicle.
This is the holy text, Haynes Caravan Manual for Servicing, Maintenance and Improvements. And yes, I've had a caravan for years. Taking
really?
Yeah, when the kids were small and stuff, and now tragically I go in it on my own to places.
Who does the driving?
What, you're kidding? So you tow the caravan to some spot in the country and just set up for the weekend with a
Well, no, I've used rather. This is my sort of cheapo version of going to Tuscany or Siena to finish writing a project. I basically tow a 20-year-old caravan down to a field in Sussex and sit there pretending that this is the splendid isolation from which will flow the greatness.
And does it work, or you just
really
sit there eating a lot of
does it work? Does it work?
I spend a lot of time going to garages late at night for a snack or a can of lager.
You're like Alan Partridge striking up a conversation.
Yeah. Well, actually, in all seriousness, the strange thing about it becomes not being able to go anywhere for the past year. I've sort of, fetishized the details of servicing brakes, resealing with mastic some of the awkward junction points between the roof and because the caravan is in storage 30 miles away from, and I'm not going all JG Ballard Crash about this, but I have feelings for the caravan that I didn't know. I haven't had any, sex fantasies as such, but I can't wait to get my hands on it, frankly.
Is something? Is the fact that it's kind of an old caravan what makes it special? You don't want to go and buy a fancy new one or an Airstream or something?
No, absolutely. Well, apart from it's suitable to my budget, but also there's just I love it. It's called Van Royce. See what they did there? They just got a name that sounded like Rolls Royce and stuck the name of it, even though it's made in an industrial estate in Darlington. But it was they were the last hand-built British caravans. Really? So this one was made in 1992, and it's got a nice. It weighs a ton. Do you know what I mean? Because they didn't bother making anything lightweight just because it was a caravan. They pretended it was a kind of admiral's living room, and full weight wood. No veneers, no. So it's an absolute nightmare to tow, but it's a lovely old thing, and only cost it cost a couple of grand, I think, and I have to come over it and fix the odd leak, but it has a sort of stateliness to it that of a bygone era that I sort of like.
So you have to drive somewhere to pick it up, and then attach it to your car.
Yeah.
Then off you go. Okay.
I love the idea you have a long day caravanning, and then you get into bed at night and plump up the cushions and get out your caravan manual, have a cup of tea.
No. This the caravan manual is sort of the lockdown pornography about.
Oh right,
caravans.
no, I thought that was part of the whole caravan experience.
No. I prefer the real thing when I'm in it.
Right, okay.
Well, Peter was talking about the fantasy of going off somewhere on your own to finish your book or write your book in the first place. Have you ever done that, Mark? Have you ever gone somewhere thinking, I'll get something done? Does it work?
and it's never really worked. It's never really worked because if you go somewhere that's really sort of bleak, quite deliberately, where there are no distractions.
Well, Ian Rankin does this, doesn't he?
He goes up to Cromarty, He potters up to his place in Cromarty. I think everybody has a different way of doing things, but we were talking just before we went on about the fantasy of writing in a shed, and I've again never done that. Never been able to do that. No, I find it quite hard. I was thinking when we were talking about has that guy who wrote those books you love about Lyndon Johnson,
Robert Caro,
has he ever come up with another volume? Just I was re-listening.
It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. It surely must be coming soon. He's had no excuse the last year. He's been getting on with it, but he always said he could only write the final volume. This is 5 volumes.
He's done 4, isn't he? That's right.
He's done 4. It was supposed to be only 3. It's now 5, and he's done 4. And he said he could only write the final volume if he went on and lived as a North Vietnamese farmer to have the kind of, because it's about the Vietnam War, the final part.
Right.
And to be fair to him, Mark, and I know you're skeptical.
Well, the Robert De Niro method approach to writing seems a little bit.
No, when he started the book, he said to his wife, who's his researcher, who's very fortunate in this respect, and she's quite a bit younger than him, I think. So Robert Caro knows are thinking, well, if he falls off his perch, she's got the notes. She can write the book. He said to her, we're going to go and live in the Texas Hill Country, which is like saying we're going to go and live, somewhere really unpromising in the UK. We're going to move out of New York and we're going to go and live in the Texas Hill Country because that's the only way I can get to write this book. And they did. But that's years ago. They're still working on it. So we're looking forward to it.
Okay. Can I just ask Peter, what caravanning?
Yes.
The actual verb to caravan.
Yes.
Does does that mean being in the caravan or transporting the caravan? Which bit of that is the caravanning?
It's more a kind of an immersive lifestyle, actually, Mark, than one particular task. You know, so you go caravanning, or you're into caravanning. Means that you the whole bit of staying overnight away from your home in a vehicle with two wheels, and also all the little ancillary things, you know, browsing the accessory shops, you know, for things like that, you know.
Getting a new thermos.
Because all my holidays when I was a kid were in a caravan, and so caravan to me just means the sound of rain on a roof.
Absolutely. In North Wales, usually.
Well, in Torquay.
Do you mean in static caravan parks where you go there and you rent one, or did you take them?
No, you would rent them. If they weren't your own
they were there.
You would rent them in some kind of caravan park and then just...
Wow. But the strange thing is, I remember thinking, I was making a documentary and a huge storm. I was staying in the caravan, and I thought, I'll record this, you know, during the night, the storm, the buffeting, the rain, the thunder and everything, because it'll be fantastically atmospheric for the documentary. And so I was in bed, switched on the recorder, and then in the morning got up, switched it on, and this is going to be heard about a minute and a half of this tremendous sort of terrifying gusting, almost like a special effects team had gone really over the top, and then suddenly and there was 6 hours of that.
Hope you left some of that in.
It didn't make the cut, sadly. So I was going to say they kind of sometimes the romance of caravanning is a bit misguided.
Yeah.
It always seems to be, if it turns up in a drama on TV, it's always going to be comical, isn't it? Really, if you're in a caravan,
or you're as Mark will know, it's the killer is in a caravan, isn't he? Mark often.
Oh yes, well in fact, a weird thing happened. There's this Irish drama Bloodlands, which went out on the BBC a couple of weeks ago. And
it was good.
The guy lives in a static caravan. Well, partly lives in a static caravan, and at one point they break into the caravan and they plant something, and there's this big close up of his bookshelf in the caravan.
And they got your books on it.
There's one of my books on it, which was actually just Jed Mercurio being very nice and putting a copy of one of my books in there. But the number of people who then tweeted me going, "Yeah, how much did you pay for that?"
There you go.
Yeah.
And I genuinely went, I had no idea about it, and they just going, yeah. So you know, thousands, but.
Listen, Mark, the rest of us knew it was entirely true to character to have you on the shelves.
But apparently, I think all the books on there were giving some kind of little message.
Oh, really?
There was, I think, some thought had gone into it.
What, related to the plot?
Yeah. Slightly related to.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shame they couldn't have redirected it towards the script. But anyway, that's a small caveat.
So, who's got something else? Have you got anything else to show us, chaps? Have anything you've got out that's played a part in your life in the last 6 months? Anything you'd like to plug?
Rediscoveries?
Whatever.
No, I mean, I could bring up more jigsaws, but
No.
Loads of jigsaws. Oh, what about what? Here's more. Look at them; they're everywhere.
Oh, look!
This is a pop culture jigsaw, which I thoroughly enjoyed doing.
Oh, that's lovely.
All American, obviously, but God, I used to love Mad Magazine.
Mad Magazine, Festa, Besta, Tester, and Carbuncle.
Well, Mad Magazine was kind of the start of my shoplifting period, where I loved these Mad paperbacks. Not the paperbacks. I think they cost like 30p.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just used to nick them. I used to nick them from W.H. Smith's in Moseley Village. Please don't come after me now, W.H. Smith. I think there's a statute of limitations.
Burn his books.
But I used to love those books. I haven't that many.
Do you remember the fold-ins they used to have at Mad, where you folded a picture and it spelt out a completely different story?
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
They were incredible.
And some of who was the artist that did Spy? Sergio Aragones, who did Spy versus Spy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Which was fantastic. And in fact, I never quite understood why Billy Bragg, to this day, I don't quite understand why Billy Bragg's first album was called Life's a Riot with Spy versus Spy. I never understood, other than knowing what Spy versus Spy was, which is a cartoon in Mad.
When we had him on Word in Your Attic,
he had
the actual lamp that's on the cover of that particular record. That was his pièce de résistance, wasn't it, Mark?
Possibly was. He was selling off all sorts of artifacts to very grateful super fans. People buying old bits of ephemera.
He got a lot of stick for that. He got quite a lot of stick for that.
He did, and he shouldn't have done.
No, absolutely. He went, well, I'm not gigging at the minute.
So Dave and I feel very strongly about this. It's like when we interviewed Lloyd Cole, and Lloyd Cole had taken to handwriting your favorite lyric. So you write to him and say, I particularly like this lyric. He will then, I think it was for $80, he would handwrite a version of it and send it to you.
It's just, it's like an autograph, but a lot of thought, love's gone into it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So I think, Mark, you've got a greatest record ever made, have you, Mark?
This is the now traditional end.
I can't remember what you showed us before.
I don't think we had
greatest records then.
We didn't? Okay.
No. Oh, I'm going to be so predictable.
Oh, okay.
Would you rather?
Is it Costello? No. Let me think.
No.
Is country and western? Is it going to be?
Oh,
that's good.
Okay,
that's good. Why particularly that one?
Well, I've got this big bee in my bonnet about. Do you remember when we did that book off thing, Dave? When you were talking about that Lyndon Johnson book?
Yeah.
And the book I was talking about was The Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
Which is always thought of as being a really important book, because it, kickstarted the hardball movement, and people just forget how great it is because they think how important it is. And I just think this is just both a great and an important album.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what they did leaping from Help to Rubber Soul was astonishing enough.
Yeah.
But then to come out with this, I mean, I don't think I can fully. I certainly can't appreciate, because I'd have been about 5 when this came out, but to understand quite what Tomorrow Never Knows must have sounded like to people.
Which is one of the first things they recorded, wasn't it? Was it recorded in December 66? One of the first things they did in their sessions when they got onto the album. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it must have just, and how cool, look how cool they are on the back of that.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. I was watching, because it was on 8 days a week again the other night, the Ron Howard movie.
Yeah. Brilliant film.
And I was watching it with my wife Claire, and we were watching it, and she was, we were loving it, and we started talking about Brian Epstein, and she was just going, why has there never been a Brian Epstein biopic? Why has there never been? And I went, oh my God! And she just started thinking about it, and who could play Brian Epstein? And I googled it this morning, and it's coming out this year.
Oh, really?
There is.
Who's playing Brian Epstein?
I do not know.
Wow.
Extraordinary story.
It is.
Amazing story.
Is that? I mean, is that just too predictable? Is that?
Listen, you can be as predictable as you like.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't care. We've had people do really obvious things. People do odd things. It doesn't matter. It's just, and very often you go away from watching these things, you think, I can't listen to that again.
We had someone waving a copy of a Duran Duran record from us.
Yes.
We thought, fair enough, absolutely. I don't know. It's probably not my bag, but why should it be?
Talking about the Beatles as we were, and the kind of speed of change, I am, and again finding bits on records that I'd never listened to before. I got out "Let It Be Naked" the other day. They kind of that version of it that they put out 10 years ago. Is it? I don't know, it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the second CD I'd never listened to before. Have you listened to the second CD?
What's on it?
It's kind of about 20 minutes worth of chats of the Beatles during filming. They're just turning up. It's a bit of a documentary. And the thing that struck me, excuse me, is that when people turn up, George Harrison greets them with the words "Hare Krishna" instead of "Good morning." Hare Krishna. And you think to yourself, this is what, 1970? This is early 1970, isn't it? And they've still been in Liverpool in 1963. You know what I mean? So 7 years later, they've gone from talking like normal people in Liverpool to talking in a way that nobody had ever thought anybody in Britain would ever talk again. And nobody's laughing at him. Nobody's taking the piss out of him at all. It's just those are the changes they've gone through.
Yeah. And polystyrene did it in 4 years.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
that movie's coming out this year as well, isn't it? The big Peter Jackson. The big Peter Jackson.
We talked about that on the podcast. I mean, did you? I'm sure you saw the little trailer from it.
The trailer was like, "Come on!"
It's just the most thrilling thing, and it just shows you can just approach anything with a different hat on when you do an edit. You can make it look like the most miserable and compromised and agonising and excruciating experience, having them all in the same room, or the most magical. But the thing that Dave and I kept remarking on was that there's Yoko Ono right in the front. She's not like in the background sitting on an amplifier kind of, I'm just with John and I've come along to the studio. She's literally in the front. They're the four of them with Yoko. And you think that must have been so hard to do.
Oh, there's a piece of film I saw of John Lennon playing with Chuck Berry. And I can't remember what song they're doing. But, you can imagine how massively important this would have been to John Lennon. Playing with this idol. And all the time he's playing, Yoko Ono is at the front of the stage in a bag.
Yeah.
And you just kind of go, this must have slightly pissed on his chips, ever so slightly.
And what's Chuck Berry?
Much as he loved it,
Chuck Berry,
what did Chuck think about
the least woke and kind of cosmic individual on God's earth.
It's a very strange piece of film.
That's incredible.
And on that note,
so Peter, have you
got anything to finish with?
Have you got a greatest album?
Got a greatest record?
I didn't. I wasn't
succumbing to a cough. Sorry.
That's all right. That covers me as I start to think of an album title that would be the greatest record ever made. Never. I think it's an outrageous question, an affront to decency and music lovers that at any moment in time one could say this is the greatest record of time. You're a disgrace, the pair of you, for asking of such a thing. So
Peter, what's the greatest caravan ever made?
Well, my Van Royce, really, just for all the unfulfilled dreams it carries, Mark, to this day.
Have you two done your greatest albums yet, or are you saving that?
Oh gosh, no, we have done them. Have we done them?
Well, we all know what you think the greatest record ever made is, Dave. We know that.
Oh yeah.
Right? Chuck Berry, isn't it, Dave?
Chuck Berry, you never can tell. The greatest album ever made at the moment is the Beatles' "A Hard Day's Night."
Oh,
simple as that.
Okay, fair enough. If I'd gone for a single, I think I'd have gone for 20th Century Boy, T-Rex. Possibly.
Okay.
Oh,
I think single wise, that's my God. Come on.
Not get it on, Mark.
There's something about the intro to 20th Century Boy that my lord. But then again, if you were going to go singles in terms of greatest single ever made, sorry to Beatles again, but Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, double A side. My God,
very hard to deny, isn't it?
And it was kept off number one by Engelbert Humperdinck.
Of course it was.
It was. Which still
guys, I'm going to have to go over here and cough.
Are you all right?
That's a great end to an episode. So I've got to stop now. I've got to go and have a cough.
I was just going to say, sorry, Mark. This is one of the first Zoomy things I've done when somebody hasn't gone, what the fuck is that spooky doll over your right hand shoulder?
Yeah.
It's just a ventriloquist doll, and people get really quite upset by it.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. And you notice he's playing an old Beatles guitar there.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
Well, look, folks.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say we should let you get on, really, and but it's been fantastic to talk to you.
It's been lovely.
It's been such fun. Thanks so much for doing it. Amazing that we've been doing this for a year now.
Wow.
And who knows, we may still be doing it in a year's time. Let's hope so, for various reasons.
Well, happy anniversary to the pair.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Brilliant to talk to you.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a View.